Is this thing working? It is working. What's happening, everybody? Let me get this thing set up a little bit better. This whole thing is going to come. I'm not even going to touch it because I know it's going to happen. What's happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a fantastic Saturday. And if you are watching this, well, then chances are your Saturday did not quite go as planned. Hope everybody's having a great week. So, wanted to talk a little bit about drag racing and tuning, and how the two kind of have to go hand in hand. I just got back from running the car, did a bit of a tune revision, excuse me, and I'll tell you what, one of the things that has been just so awesome for me are the new tires. It makes getting street validation on tunes so much easier having a tire that will dead hook on concrete. So anyway, gonna let a few folks get in, and then we're gonna get rolling. Who we got so far? Marco Corleone, number one in the house. And good evening, Professor Mason. Got the arm flex. I like it. Kobe Ward's checking in. Sub B got the 2 arm flex. I like it. Dr. Diff is checking in. What's up, man? Kobe Warren saying, I need to get them tires. Yeah, you do. Tell him I sent you too. So here's kind of the cool thing. Made a couple of revisions to the tune, primarily based around the performance that the car had this past yesterday, which would have been the 6th of November. So if you want to get the HRP app, you can go in, and what I'll be doing, by the way, too, guys, is I will be posting up on Instagram when I go to the drag strip what my car number is. If you download that HRP app, you can basically follow and see exactly what the car ran with DA information and all of that right there on the time slip. It's pretty easy to negotiate, pretty easy to navigate. So anyway, download the app pretty much every Friday that I can. This car is at the drag strip. You want to see how she's doing? Check it out. So started off the night. We ran a couple of 1140s right off the bat, and then humidity started to skyrocket. Track was packed again, but humidity went through the roof, and the DA was hovering around 600, and she went 1030s the next 2 passes out. But one of the interesting things, and by the way, this car will chase a DA. Strangely enough, though, it had slowed down primarily due to just the ridiculous humidity that we were running into, 85%. So that's not good for making power. But I needed to get the data on the car because it's that time of year again, right? So this is the time when all the hot rod boys and girls start to think about all the greatness that's going to come with all these super low temperatures. And to be honest, I haven't really messed with the tune on this car that much. So I started to dive into it just a little bit and have made quite a few changes to the tune. They're all very minor, but this is a game where minor changes and minor improvements are the difference between holding or keeping a record and breaking a record or losing a record. And right now we're sitting at 1016 for the ET on this thing. Might be able to do a little bit better than that. And again, that's with stock boost on 93 octane with a 309 gear and a drag pack. So getting into it, one of the things that I was doing, and this is something that we're going to start to chat about here in a minute, but one of the things that I was doing is I was taking a look at how the car was getting down the drag strip and what the air charge was. And this is something for you guys with superchargers, turbochargers, things like that, is something to consider, is when you're looking at timing values. The misguided approach is just to keep throwing timing at it. That's not always the best idea. You've got issues like fuel quality that can come up and sting you. And you've got DA considerations to take a look at also. Also taking a look at injector duty cycles and things like that. All of that has to come into play. And the only place that you can get that is either at the drag strip, or if you've got access to concrete or really good asphalt and a set of these types of tires where they will actually bite and sort of hook through first and second gear, then you can get solid load data all the way through the pass. In other words, putting it under high inertial load, looking at knock sensor report, basically, you know, what's short-term knock sensor looking like? Injector duty cycle on the back half, the back end of what you're going to run this thing, whether it's the 1/8 mile or the 1/4 mile. You get the idea. You have to load check these things, or else you are just guessing in terms of what you are going to be able to achieve in terms of being able to tune these things for the most power and to be safest at those most power. So basically, how does all that check out with this car? Well, strangely you should ask that. By the way, the first beverage of the evening will be a Italian sparkling mineral water, Central Market, down here in Texas. That's HEB brand. Because I am cheap and it is good. So one of the interesting things with supercharged cars is they don't do well with humidity, number one, but number two, the DA number is not the entire conversation. You have to look at DA and grains, or humidity in this case. Grains would refer to water grains. So the DA was hovering around 600-ish. The car went a 1030, whatever, call it 1035, 1030 something. Mile an hour was a little bit down, and the car felt like it was nosing over on the 4-5 shift. In fact, it felt like it had hit a dead spot. And I knew exactly what was going on right when it did it, and it did it back to back. I didn't bother messing with the tune at the time, but the issue that it was running into was just a lack of timing based on the air quality. So here's the thing. It was as the air charge increases, timing decreases, because you just have more air in the cylinder and you're basically cramming, you're cramming more boost into the thing. So you don't need as much timing. Molecules are a lot closer together. You just simply don't need the timing to get a proper burn. But you do need the proper amount of timing. And it just, with all the humidity, the car was hitting a flat spot. So I added a little bit of timing in that bit of a bathtub that it had at about that 1.38 to 1.41 air charge number. Anyway, I'm getting a little bit heady here, but suffice it to say that I just got, and I added fuel to the car. And I just got back, and here's the tail of the tape. So the car's happy in terms of timing. Injector duty cycle just about hit 90% tonight. And I'm not sure what the DA is down here, but I can tell you right now, it's probably hovering around 12 or 1300 feet. This car is going to be pretty deep into the 90s once the temperature really starts to drop. We're talking 92, 93, 94% duty cycle. And keep in mind, guys, this is a stock car with nothing really done to it, but it does have fuel added to it. So, you know, we'll see how the car does as the DA approaches these negative 5, 6, 7, 800 foot time. 5, 6, 8, 700 foot negative values, but you know, for every 1,000 feet, you're looking at another 3%. So I'm going to assume that I'm going to be probably 94, 95% once we start getting to negative 12, 1,300 foot range. So that'll give you an idea as far as where the car is in terms of injector duty cycle and where I am projecting it to be, best case scenario or worst case scenario, should I say, in terms of these real deep DAs that we could end up with down here. But the good thing is that it doesn't look like I can project anything over 100%, which is good. So at least we've got that working for us. Again, the timing values all looked good. On that 4-5 shift, I was able to keep the car above 15 degrees of timing. 15 is kind of the base of the bell curve in terms of making power with one of these things at that RPM and at that load range. So to give you an idea of how timing works on any car that you're tuning, it's kind of an interesting thing. So again, talking about more tuning right now, based around the data that we get from drag racing and street validation, which I just got back from. And again, all props again to Hoosier Tire, because I'm able to get consistent hits, 1, 2, 3 on the gears, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4 is all good, and those are the gears that I'm overcoming inertia. It's going to spin in first and second, but it will hook in third. So Good on you. Anyway, so the way that timing actually will play out is, and it's funny, starting from low to high, you've got this kind of a bell curve that can, the arc of this bell curve can be fairly steep, and then it'll flatten out, and then it can be fairly gradual or fairly steep on the back half of it. Anyway, what I'm getting at is this. Some engines, some cars, boosted or NA, doesn't matter, are more or less sensitive to timing. This car is real sensitive to timing at that 15-degree range at these load levels. And what's funny is that at 15 degrees of timing, it gets just flat. You can feel it just, you know, it sucks. At 15 and a half, happy as can possibly be. And so that's what I was looking at. I was looking at where the shift fell on the 4.5. It fell right at like 5,100 RPM, or fell down to 5,100 RPM. And so at the drag strip last night, at those load levels, it was dropping down to 15 degrees of timing, and the car was just not happy for about a full second. And then, you know, as RPM increases, it starts adding timing, and the car picked up and got real happy. It was funny. It just nosed over and then came back online. I went through, looked at it, and thought, you know what? I need to command a little bit more timing above stock to get this thing to act right in these lower DA values. And so that's what I did. And the car picked up and it ran just fine. So tonight, I mean, when I say it ran just fine, but let me tell you, it ran really good. So just know that if you're getting into tuning, there is a happy medium in this bell curve, depending on fuel quality, where the engine is going to be happy. It's going to be lower timing for worse fuel quality, and maybe a little bit higher for other fuel qualities. But for the most part, you've got this little timing island that you'll have to play with, and the rest is going to be either undertimed or overtimed. The interesting thing is that the car can be overtimed and still run just fine if the fuel quality is sufficient to carry that timing, but you're not gaining any power. And we see that a lot on the dyno. You can have, Hemis are a perfect example of this, because Hemis are hysterical. Even taking into account E85, you can throw timing at it and timing at it and timing at it. It just will never start picking up the kind of power that you think that it would or should. It's funny because I hear guys saying, I picked up all this power on E85 talking about the Hemis. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever, dude. Because I've had a car on the dyno, and I have played with timing going from, like, for example, 392s, like around 17 and a half or 18 degrees of timing. I've pulled timing down to 15, started adding timing, and just kept adding timing with this E85, and I was getting into like 23, 24, 25 degrees of timing. No knock retard, but the car just did not want to pick up any power. So you're sitting there watching this going, how is this thing taking this much timing and have such a weird wide timing window and not pick up any power? And again, you can only do that if the fuel will allow you to do so. Well, had a car sitting there, had a dyno. It's late night one night, had the dyno all to myself, figured I would start playing around with this thing and try to come up with a protocol for the E85 tunes for the 392s. And dude, nothing helped it. And so what's weird, okay, so I talked about your timing island, right? What's funny about some cars is that on the dyno, you put the timing in the car and it'll get to a certain power level. And then you add a couple of degrees and the car's like, I'm not really feeling it. So you throw a couple of more at it and you're expecting power to drop. That's when you know that you have overtimed the car. And in some cases, power just doesn't drop, it stays the same. You add a little bit more timing and power starts to creep up again. And in some cases, it'll go dink, and it's like it just takes a stair step and it'll come up. And there's no, depending on the combination, every combination is different. You can't really predict that. Well, so in this case, this is a 392 that was on E85. It was a stock cam car at the time, and I'm just sitting there throwing timing at it, make a hit. Nothing. Okay. Throw some more timing at it, make a hit. Nothing. I'm going, okay, this is one of those stair step things. I'm I've got to hit it eventually, right? Through 6 degrees of timing at it, car just went, wasn't feeling it, yanked all the timing back, car was still making the exact same power. And so there you go. The trick is to make as much power as you can with the lowest timing value. And again, I mean, it's funny when you start to see these things and they are not responding and not reacting the way that you would think. But obviously, I mean, you would never try that with gasoline. That would be not wise. But again, I had E85 and, you know, in a controlled environment. I'm looking at knock sensor sensitivity that I had actually even brought, even made them a little bit more sensitive for this test. They just never picked up any power. So there's that. But timing is a funny thing. And also getting into, you know, like what is more or less effective, right? I mean, everybody wants to know what's the perfect air fuel ratio and what's the perfect timing number. Well, here's the funny thing. You'll be more accurate giving somebody what the perfect timing number is than what's the perfect air fuel ratio. So I played around with the air fuel ratio on Foxy, for example. And Foxy did not care if it was at 11.9, if it was at 12.5. The only time Foxy didn't really like life was when the air fuel ratio got closer to like 13. She doesn't like running lean. She's a thirsty girl. But, you know, let's say 12.3 was the happy place. The difference in power between having, let's say, an 11, like a 12.0 air fuel ratio and a 12.5, which again was kind of the happy medium for that car in fourth gear, because that's peak load for that thing anyway, was maybe a horsepower at most. But timing wise, the sweep from 28 to 33 was enough to pick up 12 horsepower. So I'm sorry, the sweep from 30 to 33 was enough to pick up 12 horsepower. I didn't want to go any higher than that because I figured 33 with a GT40 intake was going to be plenty, just in terms of cylinder fill and everything else, plus fuel quality. You start to get a little bit concerned with that, but the car was happy and that's where I left it. But that'll give you an idea. Just the timing alone, the timing sweep was the big difference between the car making the power and not making the power. So I left it at like 12.4 in fourth gear because, you know, going through the gears, less load, less actual physical load. It's car goes into open loop and it'll be a little bit richer in third and a little bit leaner in fourth. So I just left it where it'd be a little bit leaner in fourth at 12.4. Cheers. But anyway, I've tuned other cars where anything richer than 12.5, I mean, they weren't mad, but they just didn't seem as happy. They weren't quite as snappy. So again, it's air fuel, kind of a big deal, but again, you get into that same thing with timing applies to air fuel. Outside of a particular range, that air fuel ratio does start to get a lot more important. And the weird thing is, the timing island seems to be kind of more of a gradual slope. It's like a gradual slope and then it just drops right off the planet. The fuel island is just like this real flat ease. Like it makes it doesn't make a difference, doesn't make a difference, makes a difference, makes a difference, and then you're done. And timing, it's like boom, and you get to a certain point when the car just will not make any more power. And I had done that with Foxy. I had taken wide open throttle timing, just playing around with it from what was it, 17 degrees to 35 degrees. And what was funny is you could tell the car was losing power down around, say, 25 degrees, but the difference between 25 and 22 was a lot more dramatic than 28 to 26, right? So it was just a real interesting experiment, you know, and, you know, I'm just like you guys. I mean, I've got the tools and I can play with this stuff. It's just always fun to see what they're going to act like and, you know, just under time the living hell out of it, see what you can get away with timing and all that other stuff. And I don't know, just something fun to play with. But anyway, let me get into you guys real quick, and then we'll get back to it. Donnie RT saying, what's up, guys? What's up, man? Biaga's saying, what's up, man? Hang with you for a couple minutes before picking up a girl I met last week. All the luck to you, brother. Have some fun with it. No Foxes tonight. 11:40s. What the hell? Yeah, that was a misspeak on my part. Cap Scout, what's happening, B? Got the arm flex. I like it. See, Cody saying, I was running at 11:30 in the same DA in Oklahoma, first time out with the car. Yeah, that was, like I say, that was a misspeak on my part. It was 10:30s, not 11:30s. Let's see. JO is saying, what do you think about the blower on a drag pack if that Whipple is applicable to other Hemi engines? They're fine. You know, the main thing is, let's see, wait, let me make sure I'm understanding the question. What do you think about the blower on drag pack and if that Whipple, oh, talking about the blower that's on the drag pack, you're talking about the Whipple 3.0. Dude, that is legit. So that blower has a different rotor design than the current like Whipple 4.5. That 3.0 will give that 4.5 all it can handle and then some. Lower inertial, lower inertia drag. It's more efficient in moving air. So yeah, that 3.0 is all that it's cracked up to be and then some. Let's see, Dr. saying, also you sent some guys my way. Yes, I did. I appreciate it. Big things coming, you know. Heck yeah, brother. That's what we're looking for. Kobe saying, hit the like button. X-Guy saying, AB, how do I turn off the automatic high beams? It never comes on when I want it to. I'm still trying to figure that out. They're annoying. These automatic high beams, if the eyeball, the magic eye thinks that there's another car coming, it'll drop the high beams. Well, if it sees a reflector, it'll still drop the high beam. So, I don't know. I think there was something in the, check something in the Uconnect under settings, lighting or settings driver or something like that. Check that out. I went hunting for it one day, but I didn't really go hunting that deep. But I think it's in Uconnect. If there is a change you can make, it'll be under settings. Dr. Dude saying, time for something about 1300, 128 FIC, fuel injector connection, special, plenty of both worlds, got the hookup for sure. Dr. Div saying 96% worst case and negative 2000. That is correct. So yeah, negative 96, I'm floating right at 90 right now in these conditions tonight at the AFR that I'm commanding. So actually it'd be a little bit higher than that. It'd be about 98% the way that the DA is sitting right now. Because I'm guessing DA to be somewhere around 600-ish. Oh, yeah, and by the way, she did go 10.5 at 132 tonight. And that was with a higher temperature than she went the 10.4 on the street last time. And it's more humid tonight too. So yeah, I'll say the tune's working. I'm a 10th off in worse conditions. Dr. Doe saying fuel is the most important thing. Timing is an after, let's see. Oh yeah. So what Dr. Diff's saying, basically, yeah, you have to have the right fuel before you can really even start talking about timing, which is true. We're going to get into fuel quality here in just a little bit. Mainly talking about pump gas, but we're going to get to that here in just a bit. Just want to make sure I get to everybody. Flavio saying, nice car. Thanks, man. Katie saying, I just got a 2012 RT Charger. What's a good first engine mod? Well, if your intake looks anything like the one that I just ported, get that damn intake ported. Anyway, I jest, but kind of. You know, honestly, man, I don't know that I would do anything to the engine straight away. I would say tuning. You could, if you don't want to mess with a tune or you don't want to spend the money, go for a pedal commander. I'm a big proponent of those guys. I know some people will say it's a little bit of a campy thing. My thoughts on it is that's something that should be offered from the factory on all these cars. But it won't have anything, it won't hurt anything along the way, and it'll make the thing real snappy, and it'll keep you from spending a whole lot of money right off the bat, and you can install it yourself, which kind of keeps you in the mix and in the loop with working on your car. You know, engine mods, man, I steer clear of it for right now. Get you a K&N drop-in or something like that, but I really wouldn't rush too quick on engines necessarily. Where you're going to be hurting is in the exhaust. The exhaust on those cars is very restrictive, especially when compared to like a 6.4. The 5.7's got kind of the leave-ins, so to speak. So, but you're going to have a tune to be able to accommodate long tubes and a full exhaust and everything else. You got your transfer function. It's going to have to. Your exhaust is going to have to be tuned. Your transfer function there. Plus, I mean, you put headers, put that stuff on your car, you're going to want to get it tuned anyway. Good thing is you don't have to get your computer unlocked, but you would still have to get credits if you're going to be using HP tuners, things like that. So anyway, that's where I would start with your car and just make it fun. You know, start having fun with it. Since you just got it, I wouldn't be so quick to jump right into the middle of it. Just have some fun with it and learn it. Let's see. Kay is saying you're probably around 120,000 miles, catch can, my guy, and a Hellcat air filter. Well, for sure that. And by the way, for the 5.7s, there's a little bit of a trick to keep it from sucking in so much of the crankcase vapor. And I've got a video on this. It's something I did to my truck using a GM PCV valve that I gut basically to make work. But it's just reducing the amount of volume going through the crankcase. I can tell you that the intake I just got through porting, I mean, you could top off a crankcase with the amount of crap that was in that intake manifold. So something to consider. But aside from that, I mean, it depends on what you're going to be doing with the car. You know, tires would be the other thing that I would suggest. But I mean, again, it depends on what you're going to be up to with the car. In other words, sorry, the Skeeter truck's going by. Oh yeah, body count over under tonight, only 2. So place your bets. X-Cash is saying, X-Cash is saying pedal commander and wider tires. Man after my own heart. Hell yeah. Cubby Warren saying, what is track mode transmission for? It shifts so hard that I feel it's slower in the quarter mile and would sometimes upset the tires. Yeah, you're asking a question that a lot of guys have asked. Track mode is really for like closed course, but even then, it does shift a little bit abruptly. I don't ever use track mode in this car, ever. In fact, I used to use it like just, you know, piddling around on the street just because it would make it a little bit more lively, but track mode, it does shift a little bit too hard. There's not really any slip to it. In back-to-back testing that I've done, track mode was not any quicker than sport mode. So, and for whatever reason, the car just seemed to upset anytime I ran it in track mode. Like it was chopping throttle, but it seems like it doesn't work for the drag strip. And the only thing I could think of is maybe it's something for the guys for closed course, but I don't ever use it. kind of like launch control. But you're right. I didn't like it either. LS swap everything, saying it still gets smoked by a Fox with a turbo 5.3. Well, I would hope so. I mean, I've got a Fox literally sitting right over there. And I've smoked a lot of people with just the 351 that's in that thing. So let's see. Katie's saying, oh, I'm at 102. Pretty good call. KS is saying for the pedal reset. Actually, the pedal commander is a little bit different in that you can change on the fly the aggressiveness or just the pedal sensitivity, which I liked. I've installed them on my E63, a buddy of mine's 550, and the same guy's Range Rover. They're a lot of fun because I used to dial it up if I wanted to be a little bit more aggressive with the car, or if I was going on a long trip, I would just chill it out and drop that pedal commander down to, you know, I think there's an eco mode and all this other stuff. Anyway, it made it nice and chill to drive. So I don't know. It's good times. Let's see. Oh, Dr. Div saying, depends on what I'm tuning. My NA magic number is 12.2 on a heavy truck, SUV, 75% of what I tune, and 12.4 on a car. Seems to keep STKR down, just my O2. He's talking about STKR, short-term knock retard. Yeah, I mean, trucks, it's funny with Hemis too, the trucks and the cars, but it's funny with Hemis. This is where I get into, you know, you guys have heard me talk about you have to get with somebody who speaks fluent Mopar. And Dr. Div brings up a pretty good point with his AFR numbers. If you try to run LS numbers on a Hemi, it's going to be way too lean. Hemis are notorious for needing more fuel. And I mean, the more fuel you give them, the happier they seem to get. So, but yeah, trying to tune a Hemi the way you would tune an LS or any wedge head for that matter is not going to go well. It never does. They don't like the timing that the wedge heads like. We got 2 spark plugs, so there's that. Plus, it's a tumble port versus a swirl port, and talking about the cylinder heads. And it's just a different beast. It's just a different animal. Each engine's kind of a different deal. KB said, at Cash, can you recommend a size? What did I miss? I must have missed something up there. Oh, talking about X Cash. Oh, and wider tires. Just 275 40s will be good. Let's see. Ellis Swap saying, still go in with a basic knowledge about tuning. Your block will appreciate it. Well, yeah, you'd want to have a little bit more of a basic knowledge of what's going on with it, though. I mean, you can know your own combination. In other words, you can know your own platform and won't have too many issues, provided you stick within the recipe of what works for that platform. But once you start bouncing around or start getting introduced to new platforms, you've got to start to consult folks that have worked with them before, or you're just gonna have to know that you've got a learning curve with an engine no matter what you're messing with. So, so there's that. Let's see. BB78 saying, what shops in Texas do you recommend for cam install and tune for a 6.1? I'm in DFW, but down for a road trip, just want top shelf work. Well, you got Dr. Diff, which is a good one to start off with. It just depends on how in-depth you want to get with your car. But, you know, we've got cam profiles that are set up, ready to go for you right now. So you got Dr. Diff and you've got Pike's Performance are the only 2 that I would recommend in Texas. I have seen work that other shops have done. So give Dr. Diff a shot. He's on here. He's floating around here somewhere. Dr. Diff saying, I know the Whipple 2.9 gets down on a 6-speed Ram and will roll the street tires at will. Yeah, that 3.0 is a completely different animal. Oh, BB's asking, where's the Mustang? The Mustang is sitting just on the other side of that garage door. She will be next, by the way, on, I don't know, tune validating for tonight. After the show, I'm going to be taking her out for a little bit of fun. Which, by the way, I got to tell you, that car is a freaking riot to drive. So I snuck it out the other night, and it's one of those things where I've had that Fox body now for, it's been in the family, so to speak, for 25 years. So whenever I drive that thing, it's kind of like, I don't know, it's hard to explain. It's like, it's not like I'm a kid again, because I still do stupid things. I don't need to be young version of me to do stupid stuff. Old version of me is doing pretty good at being stupid. But I don't know, man. That car just puts a freaking smile on my face. And it's what's funny is, so I just took Revlon out, and this thing, I mean, on the street goes out and runs at 10.5. I'll drive that car tonight, and it's nowhere near as fast. But it is still a freaking riot. But it illustrates the difference between a car that'll run high 11s, low 12s, you know, kind of that power to weight ratio, and something that runs, you know, mid to low 10s. It is so different. You know, it's hard to explain to folks that have never been in a car that runs, you know, 9s or 8s, or, you know, something that's obnoxiously fast in that range. And then go from that to a 10-second car, it'll feel slow. You know, some people think it'll feel slow. Fast is fast, man. No matter what, fast is going to be fast. But yeah, that freaking Fox bodies are right. Dr. just saying, intake comment. I'll keep them coming. I get some crap for sure. Wife needs more jerky so it'll work out. I like it. Well, it's ready to go. And it's clean. In fact, it's sitting over here. I've got these little rubberized pads that I sit them on. So here's your kid. Hang on. So she's cleaned up, ready to go. And no, it did not look anything like this when I got it. I don't know if you can even see the ports. I don't think I've got enough lighting. But there you go. Don't forget to run these injectors through the machine though, because I'm smelling that little nipple right there. Older gas. But anyway, you might be able to see that one pretty good. But yeah, this one's going to flow its ass off. Oh, and this one, the throat, I think I cut this one to 80. I think I cut it to 86, if I'm not mistaken. I got a little bit aggressive with that one, so. Let's see. Oh, LS Swap is checking in with Dr. Diff. Let's see. Oh, Cap Scout saying I just dropped off my 2016 5.7 Challenger at Dr. Diff's yesterday. I'm getting the 84mm ported throttle body with the engine tune, trans tune, long tube headers, and exhaust. Very nice. And Cap Scout saying Pop's Challenger is wicked nasty. Yeah, it is. Sounds good, doesn't it? It's that Joker cam putting in a little bit of works. Let's see. Let's see. Got everybody checking in right now? Let's see. Hang on a second. Raymond's asking, anybody know where to find casting and block numbers on the new Gen 3 Hemis? I believe, Dr. Diff, correct me if I'm wrong, but they are on the back portion of the engine, and I believe it's on the driver's side. Might be wrong about that. I mean, I haven't ever even paid attention to it on those, but there's also some casting numbers, I believe, on the bottom of the block, and in some of them, don't give me the line. It's been a while since I've even had a block in front of me, to be honest with you. Oh, Paul's checking in saying, hi, B, what sizes are the new tires and wheels? Any interference? So, a couple of things on the new tires. So, the new tires, the Hoosiers, right there, they are 28, 10.5, 17s. So 28 inches tall, 10.5 inches wide at the tread, which translates to roughly like 11.5 inches wide at the bulge or at the carcass. And of course, they're on the 17-inch wheel. No rubbing issues, nothing really to report with them. They are, in terms of stability, very similar to a set of ET Street R's, if you're familiar with those tires. These are not street legal, although they're incredibly stable. Going down the road, handling characteristics are, again, very akin to the ET Street R. They're nice and stable. You don't even notice them. In fact, I'll take it a step further. Get a load of this. So tonight, and you guys know this, that whenever I do those street hits, where I make the hit, I'm actually coming into a long right-hand sweeping turn. So when I make my quarter-mile hits, I'm actually in a little bit of a bend. I'm not like turning like this or anything, but but I'm just making a slight correction over, and I'm looking over, and I'm looking up, and I'm looking over, and the bend actually starts at about, if I'm wide open, the bend will take place at about 100-ish, 105 miles per hour. So basically at the 8th mile mark, and it'll start to just kind of lean over a little bit. And so when I'm making these hits, I'm actually in a little bit of a turn. These things are dead stable, dead nut straight. You wouldn't even notice anything about them. They're just boom, gone, perfect. Don't even notice anything strange, no swing, no anything. So, I mean, if you're considering picking up a set, I'd say go for it. Now, the only downside to the tire, again, it's not DOT compliant. This compound, I don't think I would run for any real serious length of time on the street. I would say 45 minutes in any one direction would be okay. You know, maybe even an hour in any one direction would probably be okay, but it is a soft compound, so just know that coming into it. But, you know, less than an hour, say, you'd be fine. And of course, again, like I say, the street manners of them are obnoxiously good by comparison to, like I said, a bias plies or whatever. These radials, even though they are not street legal, don't let that really bother you if that's what you're basing like stability on, because these things are super stable at speed. So it's got all the benefits and none of the drawbacks, I can tell you that, of the ET Street R. Oh, Cap's got to say, I'm missing my Challenger, but I know she's in good hands. I like it. Oh, Ken saying, I see you still have it in the passenger seat. My man has got a set of peepers on him. And yes, she is still running the passenger seat. I have not removed the passenger seat on this car at all. And that was a bit of a point of contention initially. When we went 1016 with the car, it was exactly as it sits right now, with the passenger seat in the car. And a lot of folks were saying, well, damn, if you'd have just taken the seat out, you might have picked up that extra, 0.03 of a second. You'd have solidified the number at, like, say, a 1013 or a 1012 at the most, and I'm going, it's a passenger car. It's not a drag race car. It's not a race car at all. My wife and I take this thing on road trips, for crying out loud. So, I figured, what was the point? But again, I get it. The game that we're playing is removing the seats and all this other stuff. And look, there are limits to what I will do, but there will be a trigger for me to remove this seat. If this car goes at 10:05, let me rephrase this. If it goes at 10:07, then, or quicker, but not a 9, so 10:07 to 10:00, that seat that night will come out of this car in the hunt for a 9-second pass. But it's going to have to get to that number first before I will chase the number by removing the seat out of the car, if that makes any sense. Because, not to be that purist guy, I hate that guy, but anyway, there's a limit to it. Because, okay, if I take out the seat, then, okay, well, why don't I just take the door cards off and then take the speakers out of the doors? And then, well, if I'm going to do that, then, well, what's the point of even, you can see where this goes. And it's just not worth it to me to start stripping the car down to cover a number unless I'm getting so close to some number that is basically just psychologically satisfactory, a 9-second pass. If it gets down to that point, then I'll do it. But it's going to be super tough to get a 9-second pass out of this car. Keep in mind, guys, I'm running 93 octane with no Torco, no boosting, no nothing. It's straight out of the tap, 93 octane gasoline. So I'm kind of hemmed up by that. It's going to be tough to get a 9-second pass out of it on that fuel, but we've come really close already. I get it at 1016. Some will say, that's nowhere near a 9. And if you're into drag racing, you're right. It's not anywhere near a 9-second pass. But it's basically within a car of running a 9 right now in those conditions. And that's the most important part of it. So, with removing that seat, make a difference? Maybe, who knows? But like I say, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But this winter, if the car starts running those deep 10s, might be taking that seat out of it. Dr. News saying, Pop's car made good horsepower. What it does best, seen it push through some races, it should have lost. It's still set up very well. It's fast and puts the power to the ground effectively, and that's the best way to do it. Cody saying, what up, B? What up, Cody? Cap's hanging out with Doc. Let's see. Cody, thoughts on a sleeper V6 Camry? Don't have any. Madera's asking, do you consider the modern Mustang a muscle car? Not unless we're talking about the GT500. No, it's not. A sports car or a pony car? By definition, it's a pony car. I don't consider it to be a sports car. I think all three have their own designations. So to walk you through the designations, muscle car is going to be more torque focused than horsepower. It's going to be more grunt focused. Typically, a muscle car is a larger car with a larger engine. That's kind of the definition of muscle car. It can also be an intermediate car, but again, with a large engine. Sports car is going to be something that has handling as its focus. So think of like an MGB, think of like a Miata, think of cars like that, where your main emphasis is absolutely not horsepower, but driver, the feel that the driver gets from the suspension and handling and all of that. That's a sports car. Think Porsche 911 is a perfect example of that. Now, pony car is a little bit more of an American idea, but pony car would be an intermediate sized car with a small block. And this is just kind of the way that I see it. I can't really get all big time behind, muscle car with this. It's kind of a homologation of the two. Pony car will have a V8 engine, just not a big V8 engine. It'll have good handling qualities, but it won't necessarily be as nimble or as fleet of foot as a sports car. Think of it more like, if you've got a heavyweight boxer, that's your muscle car. If your flyweight guy is going to be your sports car, then something like a middleweight or a cruiserweight could be your pony car. Has qualities of both, but not necessarily the best at any one. Just an overall very fun car that is livable, and that's where you get that kind of designation in my head. See, Cap's hanging out with Doc. Let's see. Oh, I think LS is hanging out with Madera. Let's see. John Duke saying, I had an intake like that and replaced it with a Whipple. Problem solved, brother. I agree with you. Madera's asking, so how's Lady Revlon doing? Brother, she's doing good. I can't complain about how the car is running. Like I say, I made some very minor changes to the tune, mainly to combat some of the issues that you run into with some of the humidity that we've been running into. But again, it's just taking a look at this one goofy little spot. When the air quality when the DA starts to drop, there's kind of a funny little bathtub of timing that the car will just lay over, and I'm losing ET. I mean, I'm losing a solid half-tenth out of that. So at least I did last Friday. Oh, and this goes back into timing. When I was talking about saying, look, a little bit more timing can make a big difference. So what's funny is this car's got a weird habit of when the airflow numbers will allow it to only command, and I'm saying, well, let me rephrase that because that's not an accurate way to put it. When the airflow of that the engine has got is low enough to where it'll command a higher timing value, that 4-5 shift is a little bit more crisp, and it'll carry that through the back half of the track. The mile an hour will actually be very similar with worse air with this car because the timing values are higher. I'm able to maintain the power a little bit better even with worse air because I'm able to run the higher timing value. Well, when you have the lower DA, the general idea is that you do have more air available. You are, in effect, through the, just basically through the natural process of the DA being lower, you are increasing the volume of air that you're able to cram into the engine, which means your timing should be lower. But I think that the timing drop from cell to cell to cell is a little bit over aggressive. In other words, it's just hemorrhaging timing on its way down, and it hurts it in kind of a weird spot when I get into like that negative 600 foot DA. And a little bit lower than that, that's where it hurts it. Anywhere above that, and it's fine because it'll keep throwing timing at it like it just doesn't care. And now the car loves it and it runs great in those conditions. So I threw a little bit of timing at it and tickled the knock sensors a little bit just to make sure they were going to be happy. Zero knock retard, car ran great. Actually surprised me how strong the car was tonight. So let's see, but she's doing good. Thanks, brother. Let's see. Oh, Raymond's asking, need to know if they have a way to reference the casting and block numbers, what car or year block. I can tell you, if you're thinking if these are like numbers matching, they don't stamp. The modern cars haven't been numbers matching block and transmission for. And chassis, they haven't been like that for years and years and years and years and years. So, yeah, if you were to frag one of these motors and put another one in, you'd never be able to tell the difference between the two. Let's see. Dr. Dude saying, how much pressure do you run and how close are they to the brake lines? No, they're not close to the brake lines, at least not that I can tell. And, but then again, good point, by the way. One of the things when you're messing around with these 17-inch wheels is making sure that you are, making sure that you have everything kind of tied back away from the wheel, because the wheel can interfere with some stuff that the 20s don't. And I've had these zip tied back, and I've had them anyway, one of the very first things that I did to the car was to zip tie everything back and to reroute stuff to where it wasn't close. So very good point on that. I'd forgotten all about that. Make sure that if you are running this wheel and tire combination that you're checking that. But pressure, the pressure that I was running tonight and last night was 23. And they dead hooked with 23, 23 cold, by the way. So, and tonight I was just maintaining that same pressure in the tires, and the car seems to like it. And also talking about the rubber lines, yeah, they're not close to that, but what they are close to, there's some sensor wires that run through there that you got to look out for. And Rain is checking in with the block number. Very nice. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. BB's checking in with Dr. Div. Shift checking in saying, what's up, B? Got the arm flex. I like it. Kevin saying, hey, Mason, how much faster and better running do you think an RT would be with the identical mods you've done to your 392? It'd be pretty good. What's funny about the RTs is that if you go the extra step of going with exhaust, as well as the tune and the Hellcat air filter, Hellcat airbox. Basically, if you mimic everything that I did, but you would have to go with exhaust, it would actually pick up more than what the 392s pick up. And to be honest with you, man, it's surprising how good those things can run. I mean, you can put one of those things into the 12s fairly easily. And they can be a lot of fun. And just keep in mind, I mean, there are limitations here, but, you know, just minor bolt-ons, you can get them where they need to be, and just in terms of power, and get the things into the low 13s, exhaust and revised tune and, you know, some weight reduction, and you can get that thing into the 12s handily. So, and to be honest with you guys, I'm still kind of kicking myself in the butt for not ever doing a 5.7 build. I have really, really wanted to do a 15 and up 5.7 build, and I just never have had the time to do it. Arthur's saying, what's up, B? Hoosier's looking good sitting back there. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Got the arm flex and the bald guy with the shades. I like it. Baby saying hi. Hello, baby. Let's see. Oh, Shift is asking, what wheel size do you recommend on the rear for a drag pack on a 392 Challenger? 17s for sure, and I would go 17s with the 28 10.5. 17s if you're looking for just like a slick, and if you're looking for something for the street and the strip, I would go with something like, oh, I don't know. Yeah, Mickey Thompson ET Street SS is a good tire. I mean, they'll dead hook at the track, so there's that for that power level. I like those, 17 by 9s would be the size, or 17 by 9.5 rather is what I'm running on this car. That would be plenty for you if you're going to be running a drag pack. I also know that a lot of guys like to run the Bravados. Now, the Bravados are a 10, I believe it's a 10.5, or no, it's a 10-inch wide wheel, 18, and those run what would basically be a 29-inch tall tire. The only downside to that is that you lose the gearing, the effective gearing that you pick up with the shorter tire like this one's got. So the 29-inch tall rear tire will give you more or less the same gear ratio that you have from the factory. You can cheat that down a little bit with these tires. So there's that. But if you're looking for something that's just going to be, drag race only, you cannot go wrong with these whatsoever. The initial bite is unbelievable, and you will never get them to break loose with that car. With even remotely decent prep. I was stomping on the gas pedal with this car last night, and it dead hooked every single time. And that is with a ton of street tires tearing the track prep to ribbons. So, something to think of there. You'll see Cody saying, I think my fun time with V8s have run dry. Love the sound of a V8 and love the performance in miles per gallon, but the reaction you get using a 4-cylinder or a car that doesn't look fast is priceless. It can be, but the problem with those looks that are priceless is that they come with a pretty hefty price tag to get you there. I would consider something that was more sports oriented that comes with like an inline 6 or a V6 to start with. You can go with the V6 and put a blower on it or hit it with nitrous, and there's a lot of things that you can do with it. I mean, there's a lot of argument there. I mean, that V6 is technically more advanced or more technologically advanced. So, you can do some things to them, but I mean, the downside to doing that is the back half of that argument. When you go to get rid of the car, it's just they hemorrhage value so quickly. So just know that going into it. That's going to be a labor of love to put one of those things together. But we've had guys do it. In fact, we've had guys put together some stupid fast V6 Mustangs down here. So, that's something that a lot of guys will overlook. Again, and I like the idea of it. It's hard for me to gravitate towards it. I think it's more satisfying to run through the concept of making one of the V6, the entry-level engine cars, fast than it is to actually own one. And believe me when I tell you, there's a reason why Ford doesn't offer the V6 in the Mustang anymore. So, but you can make that EcoBoost 4-cylinder truck. So there is that. Ken saying, thank you for bringing up the difference between pony cars, Camaro, Mustang, or 2+2s, muscle cars, GTO, Chevelle, Charger, Challenger have larger back seats and are bigger. Ken saying, journalists screw it up all the time. It's funny. There are buzzwords, okay? And that's what journalists will pivot their conversation on. They'll say, well, this Mustang is a muscle car because muscle has a certain connotation to it. As opposed to a pony car, because people don't know what the hell a pony car is, but they know that muscle car means something, right? Pony car doesn't mean, oh, do we have one? It's a moth. Anyway, muscle car means something, right? So anyway, Yeah, pony car is too difficult to explain, and so they'll shorthand it with muscle car, and it kind of bastardizes the language at this point. Let's see. Raymond's saying shoving the 6.4 block into a 63 Rambler American would be a lot of fun, by the way. I've seen, where was I? I was perusing the internet one day and saw somebody had swapped a 6.4 into an AMX, which I thought was pretty awesome. Let's see. Oh, Madera's hanging out with LS. Let's see. Raymond's saying, thanks for the answers. I'm old school, new to this modern tech. Yeah, there's a lot of modern tech to catch up with, too. There's a lot going on with these modern cars, for sure. Let's see. Let's see. Jimmy's saying 392, you have to throw crazy money at it to increase power compared to an RT or 5.7. Just watched a video, though, about a Gen 3 Hemi having oiling issues at low RPM. It was a really good video. Be careful with stuff like that. Not all of those speculative videos are exactly accurate. There's some that try to explain some things that don't really necessarily get it 100% right. Anyway, the problem with the 392 is that it's already extremely good from the factory. Let me tell you how good the 392 is. The 392 is good enough in stock form to take a 4,400-pound car and put it into the 11s, all right? Now, granted, that's with an 8-speed automatic, and that helps the story along a little bit, but it's a very stout engine. It makes just, well, depending on what SAE version you want to look at, if you go by what it's rated at 485 horse, there's that, but the old SAE rating would have had it at about 505 horsepower. Tell me how many stroker small blocks are out there making around 500 horsepower? Well, there's only one, and that's the LS7. And it would make about sense because the LS7 is a 427 versus a 392 and has heads on it that flow unbelievably well, but then again, so does the 392. They flow about the same. So the heads flow about the same. Based on displacement, they're basically making the same amount of power, cubic inch for cubic inch, right? So, by the way, trivia question, that LS7 was the first engine that was rated at any horsepower through the new SAE rating system. So to give you an idea, the closest competitor for push rods is an LS7 to the 392. That's pretty good company to be in, but all it is a stroked out and board and stroke small block. So, but it's already really good. To get a 6.2, which is not that far away in terms of displacement, 6.2 at its best is 455 horsepower. So if you put a cam in a 6.2, and this is a third gen, by the way, you put a cam in a 6.2, mild street cam, you'll be at about 500 horsepower if you were to rate that thing SAE net, which is basically the same power that a 392 is making. You can kind of see where I'm going with this. It's already really good, and it's hard to improve upon how good it is from the factory. It's just a damn shame that engine, number one, doesn't have an aluminum block. It's not like everybody else doesn't, right? And number two, it's in a car that weighs as much as it does. Can you imagine that engine in a car that weighs, I don't know, like 600 pounds, 700 pounds less? It'd be crazy fast. Anyway, just something to think about. Kobe's asking, will more air pressure give you a higher mile per hour? He's talking about the tires and more air pressure in the tires. Yes, it will. And in this case, I've been playing with air pressure, just raising it up, raising it up, raising it up. I'm trying to find the limits of what these tires like up to a certain point, because you don't want to have so much air pressure in it that you start to get a crown in the footprint of the tire. You want to maintain that flat footprint of the tire, and right now 23, 24 psi seems to be the happy place for these things. compared to a slick that you would run at like 14 or 15, yeah, you're going to have a significant difference in mile an hour on the back half of the track. Plus, these things are a lot more stable, and not only are they stable in the drive, but they're more stable at launch. And there's no way in the world you can see this from where you're at, but I've got the movement marks on the tires. Basically at the stem, I'll mark how much the rim has spun inside the tire. And by the way, these, well, it spun a little bit. Ooh, hang on. Yeah, they spun. I hit them pretty hard tonight. But and last night. But out of the 7 or 8, let's see, 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hard passes these tires have had, 11 hard passes these tires have had on them, they've moved about that much on the rim. So you start trying to run less tire pressure, it's less seat pressure, and that rim will move more inside of that tire. So just something to think about. Oh shit, let's just go ahead and do that now. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm over here talking about it. So this is what I'm talking about here. You can see this. So you can see where I've marked it. Here's the valve stem, the mark on the rim. So that's where it was initially. And so the rim has moved to here. And so that's been marked. So it's just moved just a little bit more since the last time. So hopefully that helps you understand what I'm talking about. And it's always good to mark your rims. Like I say, I'll mark them at the valve stem to make sure that you can track if your rim's spinning inside the tire. That's going to be normal if you don't have bead locks or you don't, drill through here, which I don't recommend. That's just kind of, anyway, that gives you an idea of what I'm up to with that. So over here yammering about it and keep thinking, yeah, this thing's removable. I can do that. So there you go with that. Let's see. Captain Scott saying, is there an HP Tuner software program that I can get from my laptop to do any data logging after I get the engine tuned? Yes, absolutely. TransTune from Dr. Dip, is that something you would recommend? Yes. In fact, it's something you will need to do. It's not a recommendation. It's like mandatory, because if you have, if you have any issues, or if you have any anything basically that you want to change along the way, you're going to have to be able to be well versed enough to at least know how to data log your car, save that file, and then get that over to Dr. Dip so he can look at it and see what your car is up to. But yeah, it's just the HP Tuner software. That's all you need. And your laptop and your cable. You need all of that, but that's what you're going to need to data log. You see Kevin saying, I definitely want that Hellcat airbox, 6.1 intake, and Borla S-type exhaust. I'm just curious how you would get that airbox to work on a pre-15 Challenger. There's guys that have made it work. Basically, it's just a 90-degree. I think it's a, what size was it? Depends on the throttle body, but it was like a 3-inch. Hose Pimp is who makes them. It's a kind of a tight 90-degree, and it's like a 3-inch to 3.5 inch. I think is the boot that you have to buy, a silicone boot. And then that just runs over to the airbox with a pipe, basically. You kind of have to fabricate your own stuff, but it'll get there. Kobe, thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. Saying thank you for the tire information. I need all I can get, man. I'll tell you what, I'm happy to get it to you guys, to you too, man. A lot of folks, especially with these Hoosiers, there just was not any information on these tires, man. I was kind of riding with you too, brother. I mean, I didn't know anything. I didn't even know the damn tires existed, man. I didn't even know these things were a thing. And then I started doing a little bit of research and found them and was able to get a hold of Hoosier and let them know what I was up to and just kind of opened up a dialogue with them. And then from there, it's, waiting on the Street to Strip series, the STS series to be released. I'm hoping to get at least 1 or 2 sets early on. I'd like to try out the 18-inch and the 17-inch wheel diameter offerings. So far, the short list on those tires is going to be the 17, basically the 28 10.5 17s and 29 10.5 18s. I think is what we're looking at right now. So that's for the late model guys. Obviously, they'll have some stuff for the 15-inch guys too. But the main thing to consider is those are going to be DOT approved. So they're going to be a direct line of sight competitor to your ET Street Rs, but they will also be the alternative to the ET Street Rs in terms of what is available out there for the late model guys. And really for most of the late model cars that are out there running drag packs, they all fall into, and I mean all of them fall into the 11 and 10 second and 9 second categories. So whether you're a naturally aspirated Mustang on a drag pack that's gutted out there running 1150s, or you're a scat pack on a drag pack bone stock running your 1180s, 1170s, whatever you're running, all of those guys are running that wheel and tire setup. You're either running bravados on the back with stocks up front, or you're running a full drag pack. So it's one of those situations where it's going to be cool to have an alternative, and it's going to be cool to kind of play the two off of each other. And I can tell you, just going off of what I've seen so far, how this is going to work out. I think the Hoosiers are going to offer a lot better initial bite. I know that these do for sure. It's not even close between these and Mickey and the ET Street Rs on the street. But I'm pretty sure that Hoosiers are going to have a lot better initial bite, be just as stable on the back half of the track, but they're going to be a softer compound. And so long distance travel is going to be probably a compromise that you'll have to make, as well as longevity of the tire itself, especially if you're doing a lot of street driving. But that's how I can kind of see that happening. So, but thank you very much for the contribution, and I'll definitely keep you posted on those tires. Again, be on the lookout. I should probably say that, I would like to say I could get one of the early release sets. I'm hoping sometime in January, February, with the tires going online for sale to the public sometime after Q1, after the first quarter of this coming year. Let's see. Cody's saying, I'd probably end up either driving it until I crash it or pass it to, or whatever. It would be a weekend car for my, while my daily does all the work. That's the best way to do it, man. Yeah, don't hot rod your daily. If don't go crazy, I should say. Don't go crazy with your daily. Madeira saying, I wish more love was given to the Gen 1 Hemis, the pre-street Hemi. I guess they weren't not popular enough. So you're talking about the Gen 1 Hemis. We're talking about 345s, 354s, 392s of the early first generation, thinking like DeSoto, things like that. They have their own calling. I mean, if you look at the gasser scene, a lot of those guys run 345s and 354s. I think it's 354. I know 345 is one of them. And some will run the 392s as well. 392 is a good engine. So any of the early Gen 1s, you make a ton of power with them. You just don't ever hear about them because they were kind of superseded by all the wedge head engines. They just figured out how to make the wedge head flow a lot. And they just didn't need the complexity of the Hemi in terms of, putting the thing together anymore. So, but yeah, they're awesome engines. It just, yeah, you're right. I mean, they really don't get a whole lot of love, but they were never in any cars that were, like you had the Chrysler 300. That was a hot rod of its day, but it was never, like there was never a factory hot rod with that engine because that period in time didn't start until later. So there's that, and really the Gen 2, which is only the 426, had a decent enough life, but, even on the street Hemi was a bit of a dog. I've driven them, and once they spool up, they're pretty good. But man, a 440 versus a Hemi, man, there's a mile of difference between the two. Which is why, again, the Hemi gets a little bit of the legend, but that 440 was out there actually putting in the work. Let's see, Jimmy saying, I just picked up a 20 Scat Pack Charger, loving it. Yeah, those are nice. The new ones are real nice. The electronics are a lot better in those newer cars. Modern Reds checking in saying, what up, B? Join in late, got the arm flex, I like it. Random checking in saying, so could you drill and add a tube to the oil squirters that cool the bottom of the pistons to squirt the cam? You could, but I don't know that that's actually a problem with these things. You got to think that if there was, first of all, the windage thing, I mean, this thing is not getting splash oiled. I mean, that would be a long way to go, even at moderate RPMs, to get a sufficient amount of oil up to those cams. I don't think that that's the issue. I think that there are other issues. There is a metallurgy issue with the needle bearings, because with only that one thing being changed by Magneti Morelli, I think that was in 2014, but it didn't really go into full effect until like 15 and a half. That was kind of the turning point with a lot of those failures going away. And I know that that's when a lot of the police cruisers, the early police cruisers, had tons of problems, but the later ones really didn't have the problems. And part of that, again, is the redesign of those lifters. Again, part of it might have been the needle bearings themselves combined with a slight redesign of the lifter, but they just don't seem to have the issues. And at least not from what I have seen. And keep in mind that, you work at a shop, again, where I'm going with this, guys. The stuff that never happens about once a month. The stuff that rarely happens about every 2 weeks. The stuff that happens sometimes happens about once a week, right? So, when you're in the thick of it, you see everything. And there's no rhyme or reason to it. Okay, so get a load of this. We had one 392 car. SRT Grand Cherokee fail in the parking lot, just sitting there idling. But the car was driven to the shop. Ran fine. Was sitting there idling, and then it threw a misfire code. And it literally was sitting there, basically wiped out the cam within about 10 minutes of the car just sitting there. Wasn't an oiling issue. It was a metallurgy issue. So kind of a weird thing, but these things happen. It's mass-produced machine. Sometimes these things happen. But to answer your question, you probably could. I just don't know that it would be worth the actual time and effort to do that. And also, the company that I work for, we use Hemis as our fleet trucks. And of the 20, I gotta sit here and think now how many trucks we have just in our region. We probably have, say, 25 trucks. We haven't had any issues. We've had the Hemi tick problem, which I did have with mine, which led into the Chrysler Pacifica review. If you haven't seen that, that's a fun video. But no cam failures. And these are guys that sit in these trucks on job sites all the time. And I mean, believe me, if we were going to see a problem, I think we would have seen a problem, but I don't know. Let's see. Hey, Sean's checking in. What's up, man? Saying other than the borescope, what is the telltale sign of a ringland failure? What can cause bent plugs, too hot, telltale blow-by signs? So, telltale sign of a ringland failure is the basically the electrode on the spark plug being collapsed. The ground strap basically is what it is. But that ground strap being collapsed from debris smacking it and hitting it. Any broken spark plugs, that would be a telltale sign of a ringland letting go. Obviously, misfires, noticeable misfire at varying or any level of load. It can be fine at cruise, but you go to give it a little bit of throttle and you start to notice a misfire coming kind of into play. Things that can cause bent plugs, very high temperatures in the combustion chamber, which can be caused by a number of different things, but primarily detonation. People think that running too lean can do that. Running too rich can also create an issue, but typically in those scenarios, you have a lower, believe it or not, a lower exhaust temperature, but pre-ignition is a completely different story. If for whatever reason the ground strap was a little bit soft, maybe that could take place. It's been speculated that that could be a reason, but I'm not exactly sure that I can buy into it 100%. However, in one instance, that was the case. So just kind of know that coming into it. I have seen one instance where the bore scope couldn't find any problems whatsoever. And it had worked out that the guy had a real shitty tank of gas and he just kept beating the hell out of the car. Hold on. You didn't hear that, but so it's a pretty night out tonight. And where I live is near it's not near, but it's near enough to a very long overpass over a creek that feeds into the Gulf. Anyway, that is where a lot of guys will hammer and do data logs, or it's a data log run because there's just a long straight hit. And somebody was on it in something that sounded healthy. So my people are out making their music. I like it. Now getting back to it, Telltale blow-by signs. Blow-by, if I wish you could hear. I don't know what he's running. Anyway. Pop open one of the breathers on the valve cover, and just let the car run. If you see a lot of smoke, if you get pressure, significant pressure coming out of there, that will be your telltale sign of blow-by. You just got cylinder pressure getting introduced into the crank or into the crankcase, and it's got to go somewhere. So that's where you would notice it. It would just be on the breather side of one of your valve covers. Blow-by can be caused by several different things. It could be just a worn-out engine. Rings just aren't sealing as well. It could be a popped ring land. You've got a second ring that's there that can stave off some of that, but it doesn't always stave off all of it. So a lot of times if it's a minor popped ring land and you only have... I'll be right back. Let me go get a visual aid. Hang on. Time out. I'm going to have to disassemble something, so talk amongst yourselves. Give me 2 minutes. All right, so y'all know the table that I made. This is part of the table that I made, and these are Molnar pistons and rods. And this is the stand that the table sits on. So anyway, this was a built short block that blew up. But anyway, to show you what I'm talking about, this is the top ring right here, okay? This area would be the ring land. And when you pop that, it means that part of this piston right here, like, let me show you like on this valve relief. Don't mistake this for a popped ring land, it's not, but that would mean that this popped off. And what happens is, see that little gap right here? Okay. So what happens is when the piston is in the cylinder, this gets compressed. See? So as this thing gets hot, it'll expand. And the more it expands, I'm going to take this as an extreme here. The more it expands, the more it'll pinch, the more it'll pinch, the more it'll pinch. If it gets too close, what'll happen is that those two pieces will come together and they'll pop like that. And what that'll do is it'll exert enough pressure to where it'll pop the top of this piston off. So that's why you would never have these ring lands next to a valve relief, or the ring gap next to a valve relief. You always turn it 90 degrees to your valve relief on these Hemis. So anyway, that's what ends up happening. And when it does happen, here's what that piston looks like from the side. So you've got your oil control, which is this guy right here, your second ring, and then your top ring. So, oh wait, no, these aren't the Molnars. Those are the Molnars. These are the factory pistons and rods. That's what your stuff looks like in a Hellcat. I think these are. Anyway, certainly what a red eye looks like, but that's what it looks like. And when it pops, it's got some shit on it. When it pops, again, it'll kind of look like this, but don't mistake that. That's a valve relief. But it'll look like just a part right here is missing. A little bit of a divot. So yeah, I make furniture out of blown up car parts. Hopefully that answers your question, brother. Let's see. Make sure I didn't pass anybody up. Let's see. Light Grid's checking in and saying, what up, B. Mason? I hope you're having a good one. I'm chilling after a long day of schoolwork. I like it. Make sure you do your homework after your schoolwork. It pays off big time. But thanks for hanging out, brother. Intro checking in and said, hey, B, been a while since I've been on one of your streams because I had to get up early for the longest time. Miss you. Hey, man. Thanks for hanging out with us. I like it. Appreciate you. Nitro saying 5.7 RX-7 still going on. I like it. Kevin saying, speaking of the 5.7 and the mods, I just seen a video where a full bolt-on stock cam 5.7 Challenger ran like the wind away from a 6.1 Charger. It was a beautiful thing to see that thing move. So here's the thing, man, and I don't want to get in. This is kind of a touchy thing, but yeah, the 6.1 versus 5.7 8-speed thing is a very real thing. And to be honest with you, there's not a lot that separates them. I know some guys say, 6.1 will walk all over a 5.7. Got some dyno numbers that'd like to argue that point a little bit further, but whatever. The problem is I love the 6.1 cars. So there's not a lot that separates a 6.1 from a 5.7, but they are very close. Ken's asking, what about the air pressure for the fronts? Here's the thing. I'm running a little bit different front. I'm not running a bias ply front. These are the Mickey Thompson 28 by 6 18 wheels, and they are at 85 PSI is what I run them at. They are designed to run at very high PSI. And so I run 85 on the fronts on this car. And that is not a misprint. That is 85. Max load level is 95. I just don't run them that high. So 80 to 85 and you're good. Oh, Nitro's saying he's got the dual quad, but it's the made by Moose, not Edelbrock. Mopar rather, not Edelbrock. It's a pretty intake system. Light Grid saying, I feel the quad exhaust do not suit the Challenger. Oh, talking about the quad tips. He likes the OEMs. I like the OEMs too. I stayed with OEM for Revlon when I put the Rezo Delete on the car. I like the stock look. I just didn't like the Rezos on the back of the car. It gave it this kind of funky look too. It had a bit of a, like it was an afterthought. It's like somebody said, oh, damn, we don't fit within some parameter. We have to put a resonator on the car or something. Who knows? Just putting it out there that it didn't look that good. So I did the reso delete just as an aesthetic. It didn't pick up any power. It just looked a lot better. Let's see. A point checking in. Saying, hey, first time viewer. Hey, man, thanks for hanging out with us. Hopefully you're having fun hanging out with us tonight. Let's see. Emery's saying, just installed a 448 Hemi and a 2012 Jeep SRT8, having stalling issues at low RPM and speed. Lost communication between PCM to TCM. Wire harness and TIPM is good. What can it be? Check for any pinched wires. Check for any grounded wires. Check for anything like that that could possibly pop up. I have seen some of the, and it's a wiring harness issue, I can almost promise you. I have seen some funky ass shit happen on when you, especially when you drop the cradle on something, you got all this stuff filleted in there. Dropping the cradle is actually a little bit easier and a little bit easier on the harnesses and stuff like that, but I can almost promise you I don't know this to be a fact. This is what I've seen, where the harness gets dinged up somewhere and it's a nightmare to try to track it. Just try to see if you can pull codes on it, see if there's something that you can glean from that. But if you're losing communication, just know that it has nothing to do with the engine itself. That has squat to do with what you did. There's something else going on in there that's causing you to have problems. And it's going to be that something is losing communication because there's a break in the line of communication, which is the wire. Let's see. Oh, Modern Red Hemi's hanging out with Kevin. Let's see. Nitro RTM is saying, what are your thoughts on a Hellcat cam in an Eagle Black? I wouldn't do it. Hellcat cam is not what you're looking for, man. Hellcat cam has got a real wide lobe separation angle for what you would probably be looking to do with it. And the problem with wide lobe separation angles is that although they're easier to tune, because your intake runner is very active, you've got a good cylinder charge, a good draw on that cylinder. The downside is that you're cracking open the exhaust valve a little on the early side, which means you're dumping a lot of cylinder pressure early. That's okay if you've got positive displacement working and you want to try to extend your RPM range. But for an NA car, for an aftermarket cam, anything 114 and less, you'll be good. But I would not go above 114 at all on an NA cam. You're giving up way too much torque down low. And it's been proven over and over again that, okay, so initially, not to bore you with story time here, but initially it was thought that because the Hemi heads flowed so well that you could run a wide LSA with them and you would be able to have kind of the best of both worlds, a lot of duration, but a wide LSA giving you an active intake runner, good cylinder fill, and the ability to run the thing out the back half of the dyno chart. Basically, that you could have good low end and torque out the back because you could, take advantage of the head flow down low with a good cylinder fill. It doesn't work like that. The Hemi is still an engine at the end of the day, and you've got to have a tight LSA to make the power basically down low. Hellcat doesn't need to do that. It's got positive displacement, meaning that it is force feeding this thing air all the time. And so to make it livable and tunable, they widen up the LSA, give it a little bit more exhaust duration than the 392 cam, and let it eat. And basically what you're able to do is have better boost response and the ability to stretch the thing out to about 6,500 RPM with that stock cam that's in the Hellcat. It'll still do that in a 5.7. The problem is it'll be a turd on its way to that number. So there are far and away better cams that are out there. And I mean, unless you were, here's the caveat, all right? There's always an exception to the rule, right? If you were planning on doing a Whipple 5.7 and you wanted a cam that was easy to tune and that there was good data on, that you could basically just transfer one, cam tune, in other words, the VVT from one known value to your vehicle and have something that is a known strong power maker with a positive displacement supercharger, that would be the way to go. But unless that's what you're doing, and I mean in this case, it would have to be a positive displacement supercharger, because that cam will not work with it will not work very well for the street if you had something like a Pro Charger or something like that. So anyway, not to belay the point too much, but there you go. Queez is asking, what do you think is the best sounding aftermarket exhaust for the GTs? I'm guessing you're talking about the Mustang. I like the MagnaFlow kit on those cars a whole lot. Borla, a little bit tinny for my taste, but I like the MagnaFlows. And again, thank you, Sean. Hopefully that answered the question with the props and the visual aids here. Dresden saying, just joined. If we're talking about the lifter failures, we've seen it especially bad in 2011. Yeah, the earlier ones were bad, like real bad. In fact, it was bad enough to where it stung the state of Texas. It pissed off the state of Texas enough to where they're not going to be using any Dodge vehicles after this year. Let's see. Sean's asking, did you try a more aggressive trans tune last night? No, it was the same trans tune. No differences on the transmission side. In fact, I hadn't made any changes to the tune last night. I mainly just went out to validate a tune that, really there wasn't anything going on. It was just to validate what I had already done with the car. And it worked out pretty good. The best part about last night was it ran, because I ended up not having to change anything with that tune. It ran 1030s in conditions where it had run 1040s the last time I had messed with it. So somewhere along the way, I've been able to pick up about 1/10 of a second. And the car's still 60 foot, pretty good. The only downside, again, was that freaking humidity. I was just down on power. 2 weeks ago, I was 60 footing 150, 149 on my way to mid 1020 passes. And then this past week, I mean, I was doing good to cover a 153 or 152. So, Sean's saying, I ran 1455 60 foot in 1500 DA with Mickey Thompson ET Street R. They are still a solid choice. They're a fantastic choice. Here's the thing, though. The only downside to the ET Street R, if there is a downside, and I'm struggling to find one here, guys, but if there is, it's the cost of the ET Street R if you compare them to the Hoosier DBRs, which is DBR stands for drag bracket radial, by the way. The difference is about, it's 330 a tire versus, what were these, like 258 per tire. So you're looking at, say, $500 for a set versus $630 for a set of the ET Street Rs. Again, part of that has something to do with the fact that it's a DOT legal tire, I'm sure, but these things are really, really good. So, again, there's some compromises that you have to make, and I'm in a position where I don't live super far away from a drag strip. I mean, if I lived more than an hour away from a drag strip, I would probably rethink running these on the street for any real length of time. But honestly, I'm having no problems with them when I do drive it on the street. It's typically I'm out doing some kind of a testing route with them, and it's for about 30 to 45 minutes, and it hasn't been negatively affected by that. The tires haven't. So, Let's see. Madera's saying the 392 is only available in the Imperial from 56 to 60, which is when they went to the 413, which was the wedge answer to the which would have been the wedge answer to the big displacement Hemi in terms of making power, and it was cheaper too. So to build. So that's one of the reasons why they went that route. Good engine though, real good engine, by the way. Let's see. Kobe's saying the cam in my 15 392 failed. Interesting. And I run it hard most of the time. Good old Dodge fixed it for me. That's good. Surprised that you, well, hold on a second. You had a 15, so that was kind of in that transition period, so I can see that. But I'm glad they fixed it. Got you taken care of. They fixed my truck for me too. My truck was a late production 14. Raymond saying, B Mason, you have a wonderful night. You do the same, man. Appreciate it. Let's see. Ken, hey, what's up, man? Ken797 saying, thanks, B. I have been incorrectly running the same tire at 40 PSI, hopefully increased mile per hour. Oh, damn, dude. Yeah. So if you're running these, which look at your tire and make sure you're running the same tire. I don't want you airing your tire up to 85 PSI and blowing your face off, but check it out. These are, hang on, I can't grab this one and grab it for you. Sportsman SR. So these are the Sportsman SRs. But check it, look at your tire, verify that you've got the Sportsman SR and that they're max load rated at 95. Run them up to 85 and you'll be real happy with them. Plus, the added benefit is that they will be more stable. You'll get a little bit better feel out of them just driving them around. So check that out and let me know how that works out for you. But thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. Ooh, went too far. Hang on. Hang on. Let's see. Oh, Shawnee's saying, no miss or stumble up to 7 pounds. Might be minor or no damage. Still investigating. Oh, talking about Shawnee had a bit of a scare with a issue with one of his plugs. So, you know, we'll see what ends up happening, brother. Hopefully everything's cool. But yeah, we need to take a look at that and make sure everything is not only good, but that we start making sure you're logging those runs too. We need to verify where that fuel injector duty cycle was. Especially in that super deep DA, man. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Richard saying, what's up, Mason? What's up, Richard? Several weeks ago, I switched from the catted mid pipes to catless, and I'm liking it. Cold starts are crazy loud. Yeah, they are. They sound good, don't they? I have no mid mufflers and resonators. Thinking of going E85. Yeah, that's going to be crazy loud for sure. SRT8's asking best first mod for a SRT8 300/61. Get it tuned for sure. Get it tuned and a high flow filter, and you will be that's the best advice I'll give you for that. Just start off with that and go from there. You've already got a good exhaust system on it, so no need to fool with that. If you want, I would say get rid of maybe a cat back to actually make it sound good. Get rid of some of the weight of the freaking suitcases that you got going on with that thing. But yeah, that would be my next step too. So tune, filter, cat back, you'll be good to go. Let's see. Light Grid saying he agrees. He agrees with something. That's good. Dress is asking, what are your thoughts on the HRT Stage 3 kit on a 2011 5.7 Hemi? It's a little bit much for that engine. Installing the master kit with ported heads, long tubes, 3-inch high flow cats, and a 3200 stall converter. Good build. I would dial the cam back just a little bit. I think the Stage 3 is going to be a little bit much. I think you'd be a lot happier with the Stage 2 if you're going with the full kit from comp. So I am painfully aware of the HRT. Stage 2. Works out great. It's a good cam. If you're going to go with an off-the-shelf cam, that would be the one that I would go with. Don't worry about the Stage 3. It's a little bit much, and it's going to be a turd down low. Other than that, though, yes, you are off to a fabulous start. Let's see. Oh, Kevin's saying, it should have specified the 5.7 and the 6.1 were both 5-speed cars. Well, interesting on that one. Let's see. 5.7, 6.1 are pretty close, though. Hilton Mode saying, got any eBay part horror stories? Man, nothing recently. I've actually had really good luck with eBay over the years. I cannot complain one way or another. I actually sold a car on eBay, if you can believe that. Non-X is asking, what are the best bolt-on upgrades to add to a Procharger on a 6.1 Hemi? What are the best bolt-on upgrades? Well, I mean, if you're talking about just the kit to get, you're going to want to get the race intercooler for sure. Obviously, you're going to be going with injectors and pumps and everything else. Depends on how far and how deep you want to take the car later on with this thing. I don't know what Procharger you're running, D1X, D1, P1, F1. It just depends on what compressor you're running. But, you know, I would say go with, you know, obviously the biggest intercooler you can fit in the thing. Make sure you got enough fueling to go along with it. But as far as best bolt-on upgrades, you know, you could go, so you're on a 6.1, keep your stock manifolds, go cat delete with catback, like that Magnaflow catback. Be a good place to start there too. Really nothing else you can do. I mean, everything is going to be included with that kit, mainly. Nitro saying, so I need to buy a new cam then. Well, I mean, if you've already got the one that you got, then run what you got. But, yeah. Let's see. And a lot of that too, man, look, cams get kind of funky. Listen, there's a lot in... I've put together a lot of cams for a lot of different combinations, and part of the fun and part of the irritation with cams is that a lot of owning a car with a cam is very subjective, and how much, let me put it like this, a lot of it hinges on how much are you willing to give up in terms of drivability, and are you going to be honest with yourself as far as what good drivability really means to you? You know, I've driven cammed cars that felt significantly slower than their stock cam counterparts, even though they made more power on the dyno. So let that sink in for a minute, but that's something that when I very first started putting cams together for the Gen 3 Hemis, primarily the later, the VVT cars, I was actually a little bit intimidated by it, because every one that I had driven up to that point, every late model Hemi that had a cam in it, ran like shit. So, just saying. And again, thanks, Ken. I appreciate that, brother. Canada guy checking in and saying, hey, how's it going tonight, Brian? Managed to catch you this time. Nice. Glad to have you, brother. Let's see. Nitro saying, started looking at some COP and TSW units that might be a little better for my tiny little Mazda. Some of them. Nitro saying stage 1 or 2 just because of the dual quads. I like the stage 2. Runs pretty good from what I've seen. Modern Red's asking thoughts on a stage 1 supercharger HRT cam on an FBO ProCharge 5.7. It worked fine. It's really close to, I think, a 268 grind. So yeah, no, that cam would be fine. for that setup. There's better ones out there, but that one would be fine. So when it comes to Pro Chargers, here's a top tip for you. Err on the side of smaller whenever you're messing with a centrifugal supercharger. Please do not make the mistake of trying to throw a kitchen sink bottom of the page cam at a centrifugal supercharger, because it will keep trying to push your peak torque higher and higher and higher and higher. And depending on your intake manifold, the style of your intake manifold, what can potentially happen is, and I've had this happen, and it sucks when this happens, you'll have a car that is a dog down low. And as RPM grows, the car is going to make, the power curve is just going to keep going up, 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 up. But the problem is that you'll run out of efficiency somewhere with the intake manifold because of runner length. And so all it'll do is it'll get to like a certain point, from your point of view, it'll get to a certain point and it'll pancake the power curve. And what happens with that is the car just feels slow. You never get this rush of power, or you kind of do, but it just keeps carrying this power, but it's hemorrhaging torque. And it's hard to explain, but the car just, it can make 700 horsepower to the rear wheels and it still feels slow because it's just such a turd down low. So err on the side of smaller is better, because that'll do a couple of things. One, it'll give you better torque response down low. And two, it'll give you better boost response once you start making for the combination to make manifold pressure, because it's just not as efficient. A less efficient combination will help to build boost. And in this case, that's what you're looking to do. So actually with a Pro Charger, a less aggressive cam can actually make the car feel a lot more fun to drive, and you won't lose anything in terms of power necessarily. Dress is asking, what is your startup procedure after doing a bunch of engine work? In other words, what is your way of ensuring parts don't run dry of oil? If my fuel rails are off, how long to repressurize the fuel system? If the fuel rails are off, once you put them back on and turn the key, it's going to repressurize the whole thing within just a few seconds. So don't worry about that. As far as the fire up procedure, some things to not forget to do. Basically, you kind of get into a bit of a ritualistic kind of methodology. So always soak your lifters, always pre-lube everything. If it moves or looks like it could move, if it's a part of the engine that is not on the outside of the engine, it gets oil, and it gets oiled liberally. Obviously, your assembly lube on everything, mainly because you want a film around everything at the initial startup. Make sure you primed everything properly, but in the meantime, like your oil pump, make sure you've got everything working in that way. A lot of guys will pre-lube everything, and then they'll get the engine set up in the car, kill the fuel system if it's got an electric pump, and spin it over. If you've got a lot of assembly lube, a lot of guys do that, and it's not that big of a deal on roller engines. But you're going to run the thing in initially. Once it fires up, go ahead and let it run for maybe 10 minutes, get it to operating temperature, kill it, and do an immediate oil change. Change the filter, make sure that you cut the filter open and that there's no basically tinsel in your filter. And then once you've got that verified, then you should be good to go. The next oil change will come at about 6 hours worth of drive time. And then from there on, you're just on a normal oil change regimen. Also, I like Rotella for initial break-in. It's got a ton of detergents, a ton of additives, but Rotella T 1540 or 540 or 1550 or whatever it is, but primarily 540 is a good one. Hang on just 1 second, guys. I gotta take care of one thing real quick. Time out. Hang on. Porky was about to have a fit back there. All right, so getting back to it. Demonology in the house. What up, man? Saying, what's your thoughts on the new Maggie 3.1 Supercharger? It's pretty sick. The new run of all of the 3.0s. So whether it's, you know, the Maggie or the new Whipple, they're all really good. So the revised rotor pack, along with the lower inertial load, is what makes those things so good. So more efficient, they have better boost response, and on top of all of that, you can spin the living hell out of them, and the downstream air temperature is lower. So make a ton of power with those things. A lot of it has to do with efficiency. Let's see. Oh, but they were saying 60 was the year the Imperial was made apart from the main Chrysler lineup, and that's right, it had its own brand. In 56, they made Imperial its own brand to compete with the Continental. That is right. But everybody say what's up to Demonology. What's up, man? Oop, I lost my spot. Here we go. 9X is saying, oh, P1 SE standard, then I'm going to forge internals before I go further. Much respect. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, my main thing with that, brother, is look, again, stick to the recipe, and you'll be good with that. But again, you can never, ever, ever have too much intercooler with the setup that you're going with. So if you don't get anything else along with that kit, please get the race intercooler. You will thank me later. Let's see. Shawnee's asking, what conditions do you need to run a 1010-ish or better? Negative 200? Negative 200 won't get it done, I don't think. I'm going to need something around negative 500 to negative 700. I'll give you a perfect example of this. In 0 DA, and I mean flat DA, the car, and this is like what, 2 weeks ago, last week, I'm sorry, a week ago. In 0 DA, the car ran a 1027 and a 1025. So if you down math that a little bit, minus 200 would get me like a legit minus 200 in dry air will get me probably a 19. Negative 500 would probably net somewhere in the 11s, like the 12-ish. So a 10, 12, something like that. To get 10 O's out of it, we're going to need dry air, really good track prep, and probably negative, I'd say negative 500 would get it real close. 700 get it real close. Jimmy also saying, low cams sound good and feel great, totally ruin your daily attitude of your car, can actually become really obnoxious. Learned that with a Fox body I owned many years ago. So it's funny you mentioned that. There's a lot of folks that will say, I want a cam that chops. I want all the chop. Give me the chop with a side of chop. Throw in a chop on the backside. Listen, dude, yeah, it's cute, it's cool, it's fun, it's whatever for about, I think the going rate over under is about 6 to 8 months. And if you're driving the car even remotely regularly, there are little things that will start to get on your nerves that a cammed car does that stock cars don't. They'll have a tendency to act stupid coming up to stoplights, right? They'll hang an idle, or they'll be too low and they'll die at a stoplight or something like that. Fires right back up, but there's little annoying things that cam cars can do that you're never really told about. And that goes along with, you know, you want to be a hot rodder. This is what hot rodders do. This is what hot rodders deal with. So, you know, technology as it is getting a lot better. And there's a lot of guys that are getting really good at tuning these cammed cars, but it's not a question of if, it's a question of when you're going to start getting annoyed with it. So you know, in short bursts, it's a lot of fun, but there's nothing that's any fun about a car or a truck that's trying to load up every time you get in front of a freaking stoplight. So I know this from experience as well. See. And actually saying, I do want to keep the red eye cam in case I get a roots like a Maggie, or if I'm feeling stupid, a 671 from a Detroit Excel on a modern manifold, and considering 6.4 unit but wide LSA. Yeah, if you're going to go with any of the positive displacement superchargers, then yeah, feel free to go with a wider LSA. In some cases, you'll be better off for it, primarily because, again, the instant boost response, plus the ability to just kind of rev the thing out and get RPM out of it. So there's that. And again, the whole reasoning behind having a positive displacement supercharger is to have instant boost. So, and it's not about wide open throttle boost either. It's about that tip in throttle response that you're really looking for. Modern Red Heavy, thank you very much. Saying, thanks, B, you're the man. Thank you, man. I appreciate you hanging out. Got the contribution to the cause. Thank you very much. Yes, your contribution dollar is at work. So, mainly in the tires in this case, and you know, trying to get you guys some info and some insight as to what I'm up to whenever, you know, we talk about tuning and taking the car to the drag strip and all of that. You know, there's so much data that you can only get from the drag strip. And even running these tires on the street, you got to remember that they are not going to just dead hook. There's going to be some wheel spin. In fact, there's quite a bit depending on how I'm rolling into the throttle with these tires, especially at least on the one in first and second gear. So I guess the main thing is that without the ability to fully load the car up, you're never going to get a strong idea for what the thing is going to do in the real world unless you can load the thing up with really good traction, really good track prep, and put it under a very high load scenario from a dead stop. I mean, that's really the only way you can get the data that you need and to be able to run it out until you get through the end of fifth gear. It's just the way that it works with these things. So, you know, in saying that, can you get it done on the street? Yeah, you can, but you can't really get the transmission tuning side of it done. Even with this car on those tires, I can't tune first gear, the 1-2 and the 2-3 shift because it's spinning through those gears. Even with the understanding that I'm kind of rolling into the throttle, that affects my shift timing. So it's all got to be done at the drag strip. And that's really what this past weekend was all about, was just validating the tune that was in the car and to see where the car was going to run in worse conditions. And it did really well. I was surprised. Oh, Hilton's asking, I should be okay. Oh, he's asking, should I be okay ordering long tubes for my Ram on eBay? They cost about a fifth of what the Kooks are going for. Man, look, I ain't going to tell you how to spend your money, but when it comes to fitment and quality, Kooks is really hard to beat. I'm not saying that the eBay headers won't make good power. They will. The only problem is how are they going to fit? So, listen, when it comes to headers, you get what you pay for. I say try them out, man. Try the eBay headers out. I'm just here to tell you that there may be other modifications that you could have to make, but to get them to fit. But to be perfectly frank with you, I've never had a problem with a set of Kooks headers. And I know that they're expensive, but again, in this situation, man, you get what you pay for. Much better metallurgy, much better fit. It just sucks that the power difference really is never there. But just know that you may have to do some tweaking and massaging to get it to fit, if that makes any sense. Oh, Treston's saying, man, this is good info. I should have had a notepad ready for that startup procedure. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, think of it like this, man. Overdo it, and you'll get there. Again, it's just make sure that you soak your lifters. Make sure that you use your assembly lube liberally. Make sure that you are pre-oiling, pre-lubing every little thing. Again, if it looks like it could even possibly move, oil it. Make sure that it's wet, basically. Your main objective is to make sure everything is wet. Get the thing buttoned up. Again, you can, some engines are a lot easier to prime than others. A lot of guys just take the route of killing the fuel system and spinning the thing over with no spark plugs in it. Just make it real easy to turn that rotating assembly over. But again, another thing is you get the whole thing together. Don't forget to put oil in it. One of the weirdest things that has happened, and it didn't happen to me, but it's something that I had heard of, and I couldn't believe it when I first heard of it, and then I heard it happen again. Guys get the engines into the platform that they're working on. They will have slathered everything up with assembly lube. They've wetted everything. Everything's ready to go. It's not hooked up to water yet. They're just trying to get the thing to fire and validate that the thing's going to start up. So they go fire the thing up. And they never primed it, and they just fired up dry. And it's like, oh, damn, I've seen it happen. I've heard of it happening once, like from the person that did it, and I've heard of it secondhand or third hand, I get whatever, from somebody else. So, yeah, aside from everything that I said, don't forget to put oil in it, because it's easy to forget after you've been messing with oil and assembly lubes and all this other crap leading up to it. Yeah, once it's set in the cradle, or once it's ready to go, put oil in it before you plug anything into it. Before you plug the fuel to it, put oil in it. It's the most important fluid for that engine. It should go without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. Put oil in it. Dre's saying, just driving my car will be nice. It's been on ice, metaphorically, as I live battle rust for the past couple of years. Oh, bummer. That was nearly one now, regardless of obnoxious cam behavior. Well, if obnoxious cam behavior means it's running. Madeira saying, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Chrysler and Lincoln were the only manufacturers to make one of their models into its own brand, and still are to this day. Well, let's break that down. Nothing out of GM. GM had everything separated. In other words, there was never a Chevrolet Buick, or there was never, a Buick Oldsmobile. As far as actual brand, leading up to this day, no. Genesis is the exact same thing happened with that. Genesis is now its own brand. Kia, it's now Kia, Hyundai, and Genesis, as opposed to the Kia Genesis or Hyundai Genesis, whatever it was. But that would be, it's the exact same thing, but that product is now its own brand. Oh, and one other possible, like honorable mention, Corvette. Or also Ram would be another one. Dodge Ram is no longer a thing. It is FCA owned Ram brand. So the Ram is its own brand as well now. So there's a couple more for you. Nitro saying, looked up the 392 LSA is 121. Yes, it is. Very wide LSA, by the way. Let's see. Ken is asking, maybe an odd question, but do you know the material of the stock upper control arms, and if I could narrow them? The stock, you're talking about the upper, no. I don't think you can. Oh man, I used to have a set here too of the stock arms, and I don't anymore, and I apologize for that. Those, you wouldn't want to narrow them, first of all, because you wouldn't want to compromise. Those are actually more trailing arms than anything else if you're talking about the fronts, because you have front trailing arms, which are right here, like that. You have a camber arm, which basically controls rear camber. Then you have your trailing arm, which is in the back side, right in here. I'm trying to do my best weather reporting finger there. You would not want to narrow them anyway, because that is, those arms are there to locate that rear spindle in space, basically. See, I don't go cutting those up. If you need an adjustable version of that, BMR makes a set, and I think Spawn makes a set also, but the BMR does, I think, make it, well, they make the adjustables. And I've even got an install video when I was doing the Spawns on the white car. I've got an install video on how to install the front trailing arms, kind of the easier way, if you want to call it that. And then Dressing goes, hey, have you looked at the BMRs? Canada guy's asking, should have specified meant the front uppers. I believe that Spawn makes an adjustable upper control arm for those things. But I really wouldn't go messing with trying to cut on any material on these. Same principle applies. Plus, you're trying to work with something that is very heavy. I just wouldn't necessarily go cutting on those. And yeah, go with the tubulars. You will be good to go. Well, guys, I appreciate y'all, man. We are coming up over 2 hours. I want to thank each and every one of you guys for hanging out tonight. Hopefully I was able to answer some questions and give you guys some ideas for some of the things that I'm looking at in terms of tuning just in general when I'm putting something together for the drag strip, what I'm looking at when things act a little bit weird, data that I'm looking at, as far as, getting the cars ready for the track, the routine, just make sure she's fit for the service you're going to put her under. So, fresh oil, fresh tires, and that's the other thing. Just make sure you're running on a tire that's going to be adequate for what you're going to be putting it through. Can't tell you how many times I've seen guys go out with Hellcats on stock tires and then get mad that they don't run a 10. So there's that. Anyway, thank y'all very much again. Really do appreciate y'all hanging out. If you're going to send it, don't bend it. Keep your shiny side up. God bless. Love each and every one of you guys. Have a great start to your week. We will catch you early on, probably around Tuesday. And that is a wrap. Check me out on Instagram. You'll see what I'm up to with some of this porting madness and mayhem that I'm up to. By the way, yes, this last one that I did is the most material that I've ever had to remove from an intake to make it look right. So at least there's that. Got another one to do next week. It's fun though. I love it. Y'all have a great one. Take care. Adios.